Alright guys, TacticalRab here, and today hope you're doing well and enjoying your day so far. And with the recent leaks that Advanced Warfare 2 may be coming in 2025, FormaL has not at all ruled out the potential of a return to the CDL if that game indeed launches, saying that it would be 100% down to make the return to Call of Duty if that was the case. Would Scump, FormaL, Shotzzy +1 be a dominant team in jetpacks even in 3 years' time? We'd certainly love to see it. Very much enjoy your thoughts in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always. I'd greatly appreciate it. It really helps out the channel. Thank you very much indeed for doing that one. Firstly, thought this is pretty cool. Actually, a little bit of content the CDL did on their Observer team. Great to see how this works behind the scenes. And honestly, credit where it's due to the Observer team in general, just making this work now from an online perspective, because it must have been difficult really when the pandemic hit and stuff to make everything transition. And look, let's be honest here, when the CDL first kicked off online, it wasn't a particularly good experience. But since then, I think the Observer crew has got an awful lot better, and they do a great job in general to make the experience better to watch than it would otherwise be. This other was pretty funny from Parasite really, because Modern Warfare 2 is not coming out too far away from now, only October the 28th, so 2.5 weeks or so, and Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 is going to be here. Is it going to be any good? We shall see. Firstly, a couple of things here for I thought was funny really here from Clayster. So Bance comes out with this. So I decided to join the Bad Boy Beeman Discord. So Bad Boy Beeman, this guy who tries to expose some players who may or may not be cheating, let's just say. And Bance, I think, has been having a good time kind of roasting these type of guys on stream over the last few days. So he joins their Discord, and one of the members of the Discord accuses Clayster of cheating. Looks like your time is up. You've been caught. Yes, this is serious. So I guess in this Discord, there's a channel that says sus clips. You decide if they're legit or not. And this guy comes in and says, look, eyes on the crosshair, and then eyes on the quote-unquote mini-map, right? So here's Clay looking at this game. He's absolutely fine, I'm sure. And then he looks up at his mini-map on the top left-hand side. Or does he look at the mini-map, or does he look at something else? And then this guy reckons, but mini-map should be lower than the camera. Not this far over, not that high. Most likely a second monitor positioned behind the minimap to the sky. I can't believe how mentally ill these poor people are. Then he thinks the Clay is looking over at I don't even know what he thinks he would be looking at. Maybe I don't know, maybe he's got another monitor that tells him where the players are or something. It's pretty obvious here that if Clay isn't looking at the minimap, which he probably isn't because the angle doesn't quite look right, he's looking at his second monitor probably for his Twitch chat, right? Why would that not make sense? Just look at your Twitch chat between kills. It's incredible how, that some of the confirmation bias that you see from some people who like to accuse people like Clayster, 3-time world champion, of cheating. I mean, imagine if Clayster is actually cheating and has done so for the last 10 years on LAN and online, you got to respect it. He's hidden it rather well, but I think even Clay goes on to reply here. So Brian says, ladies and gentlemen, we got him. Or always thought that Modern Warfare champs room was rather suspicious, right? So yeah, Clay's looking at the second monitor on the left-hand side. Sorry guys, it was all Clara's fault. Clara was funny actually. I forget where Clara came from, but for maybe a couple of years now, let me know in the comment section below where Clara actually came from, because that was the thing that was going around when people were accusing others of cheating and stuff. But yeah, people have got to get an absolute grip on this stuff for real. Now let's talk about this. I thought it was a pretty spicy take actually from aBeZy, because you guys remember a month and a bit ago, there was all the Warzone versus CDL Pro drama. The Warzone Pros were like, yeah, we're better than the CDL guys. Did some 1v1s. CDL Pros generally came out on top, and in fairness, on Speedball, Biffle, it's kind of really difficult to defeat. Now aBeZy actually comes out here and makes quite the statement that these Warzone Pros, as he calls them, are actually not even pro players. He doesn't reckon that there's really any skill involved in Warzone as compared at least to the CDL, and says that really if you're a Warzone player, you're nothing more than a content creator.
And you can't say games and you can't say Warzone, because in my opinion that's not a pro. Warzone, a Warzone Pro is not, that's not a thing.
Oh, scandal.
What do you mean scandal? You can't sit here and tell me that Warzone, you can't be, it's not, dude, in my opinion there's not pros in Warzone,
that just pisses me off. Whenever I see Ash.
But that's not, in my opinion, you can't be a Warzone pro. There's not,
well, in order
it's
to
not
be a pro, period.
Listen, my personal opinion, I don't think you can be pro in, I feel like a pro esport isn't I don't know.
Dude, why
it's hard.
Keep dropping?
It's just my personal opinion, but
actually,
once you have it, you never lose it.
If anything, to me, it's you're a Warzone content creator, to me. Bro, Nick is a moron, bro.
And FormaL didn't necessarily outright agree with this the other day, but he did say this back in August. What exactly makes one a Warzone Pro? Is there actually a list of all pro players? Actually curious. It's a fairly good point here from FormaL, because if you're a CDL Pro or a Call of Duty competitive pro, it's relatively clear that, okay, you're signed to a team, and you're, okay, let's say you're an amateur, you're not necessarily a pro, but if you've got a contract, then to some degree you're a professional player getting contracted to an organization. Now, if you're a Warzone kind of content creator for an organization and getting paid to play Warzone? Are you getting paid as a pro player or are you getting paid as a Warzone content creator? So it's kind of an ambiguous one as to kind of what exactly makes a Warzone pro. Who clarifies as a pro, who isn't quite a pro? Like, okay, let's say you're a content creator like Tim the Tap Man playing Warzone. Like, he's not exactly a Warzone pro, right? But how close do you have to get to an Aiden or a Biffle or these caliber of Warzone players to be considered a pro player, right? It's a bit of a question mark. And aBeZy was like, look, I don't consider any of these guys pros. They're just all content creators because the game just doesn't have the skill gap that it needs to consider someone a pro. So quite the statement really, and even FormaL went on to say here, actually curious what this takes really. And actually FormaL replied because he Googled list of Warzone pros, number 1 is Scump. So just kind of goes to show that it's difficult to really determine who a Warzone pro really is and if any of them even exist, as aBeZy is kind of implying. So yeah, definitely maybe try to, well, not exactly trying to re-spark any drama or anything, but just interesting to mention because I'm sure sooner or later the Warzone versus CDL stuff will happen, and hopefully if it carries over to the launch of the new title, because when Modern Warfare 2 comes out, I'm really hoping they'll do some 4v4 hardpoints between 4 CDL pros, 4 Warzone pros, and try and see what happens. Because I think Dashy, I don't know, maybe it wasn't Dashy, I think it was Pred that said, put a team together of Pred, Dashy, Cell, and Shotzzy or something, or whoever it would be, and they would 50-point club like any team of 4 Warzone guys in a 4 versus 4 hardpoints. I'd like to see that right when the game launches. So there's no prior knowledge, like the teams haven't really figured out how to play the maps, how the rotations work, what sort of grenade lineups to use. Just straight up going in blind and try and see what happens. So maybe someone will hopefully get that sorted when the game does indeed launch. Now, this of course came out a few days ago. We saw the announcement from, a leak coming out here from Ralph's Valve. Pretty reliable leaker on this type of subject. Now, we've seen Charlie Intel and others kind of say, you know what, hold your horses a little bit. It's far from guaranteed yet. We don't have the confirmation, especially because Treyarch's game hasn't even been confirmed. We don't really know what Treyarch are up to. There's been some rumors about kind of what war Treyarch's new game is going to be based around, whatever that potentially could be, but we still don't really have any idea what Treyarch's game is going to be, and that's in 2024, 2 years from now, and apparently we know what Sledgehammer Games game is going to be in a year further on than that. So these are probably just early preliminary discussions with Activision in terms of what Sledgehammer are trying to produce, but Activision, as I said at the time when I talked about this, will at some point or another probably have to make the call to switch up the movement mechanics yet again. It's kind of how fashion goes in cycles. Boots on the ground has been a thing for several years. We had that 3-year period of jetpack movement back in the day. It may well be about time that we go back to a movement mechanic like that, and Activision just try and have to hit the nail on the head in terms of the timing. But also they've got to consider how do they make sure the casuals still have a good time. It's a bit of a balancing act they've got to make. But I think it was inevitable that at some point or another, advanced movement would return, and hopefully it will for Advanced Warfare 2. May well be in 3 or so years' time, but who knows what players will still be around then. And as I talked about yesterday with Scump, he's got 2 years of Modern Warfare 2, but then he's got a Treyarch game ahead of him, and then he might have Advanced Warfare 2. So do you want to retire in those circumstances? Might be a bit difficult, and even FormaL practically confirming on stream that, if Advanced Warfare 2 really is coming out here, he'll for sure be giving it a go.
Did I end up in a game with Flame sometimes? Yeah, surely. AW2 is godlike and CDL has open teams, but I go for it? Yeah, dude, I'll be all over that shit. See you in 2025. No. Like, huh? Be all over that. Oh my god.
And this is the thing generally with the Halo scene really, is that we know that the way Halo goes, because they don't have a new game very often at all, that the Halo scene will be very vibrant for a year, 2 years, maybe even 3 years, but then by the time the new game is getting released in a few years' time, the Halo scene dies down an awful lot. And despite the fact that FormaL is there now, and obviously the World Championship is I think on October the 21st or whatever the weekend is after next, he's got a chance to become a world champion over there in addition to Call of Duty from 2017. But Halo hasn't always had the history of maintaining its competitive scene for all that long, and you can imagine that in 2 or 3 years' time, the Halo scene might not be looking so good, and some of the Halo pros might be looking to come back to Call of Duty, as has happened a few times in the past. And if FormaL's still playing well and still feeling it, what's to say that he wouldn't actually make the return for Advanced Warfare 2 if the game does indeed come out? Because this, I'm sure, was one of his favourite ever Call of Duties, one of his best ever, really. This is where FormaL, I think, really made the mark on the scene, especially from the OpTic perspective. Was great at the end of Ghost, but when he joined the OpTic team in Advanced Warfare, Warfare was expected to do very well because, of course, they'd got rid of some big personalities to get to the point where they brought guys like FormaL in and very quickly proved his worth on the roster. And like 11 years later, he might be able to try and do the same thing yet again. So what would the team be in this theoretical circumstance? And FormaL has obviously made it clear that he doesn't really want to play games that he doesn't enjoy. One of the reasons why he stepped away from Call of Duty was because like he wasn't really enjoying the grind anymore. The games weren't quite what they used to be back in the day. If Advanced Warfare 2 comes out and it's kind of like a direct sequel of Advanced Warfare 1 and it plays similarly and maybe some of the key features of the last few titles are dialed back to some degree, it might still be a great time for a lot of these players, and I'm sure they'd enjoy the novelty as it would be yet again to a certain degree of the movement mechanics that would potentially bring. If indeed it's not, as I said at the time, some sort of post-apocalyptic future where the jetpack's all broken and it still somehow boots on the ground despite being Advanced Warfare 2, or whatever Activision will say to Sledgehammer to try and caveat it to make sure the casual players have a good time. But like assuming that it's actually a good title that the pros enjoy, FormaL would clearly be interested in potentially returning. And look, we don't know what's going to happen to Scump at that point. Is Modern Warfare 2, the 2-year life cycle, going to be the end for him? Like, it's certainly not going to be the end for Shotzzy, you would imagine, right? Who's going to be on OpTic for quite some time to come. But you can already picture a team when FormaL would be probably like, 30, 31, and Scump might be, about 30 as well, in terms of, what their roster could be. Because look, if Clay has a good season at 30 this year, what's to say that those guys don't stay around that long as well? And then they could run it back with like a ridiculously talented jetpack team. I mean, can you imagine Shotzzy and like FormaL in a jetpack game? Because FormaL's great at Halo, and it's obviously not too far different in terms of movement to what the jetpack games have looked like in the past. Like, bring back Scump, so Scump and Shotzzy, FormaL is one of the ARs. Obviously, like, I don't know what's going to happen to Dashy at that point. It's not like Dashy is going to be bad at a game like that either. But, maybe there's a world in which that happens. But obviously, it's a few years away, and as it stands, nothing has even been confirmed on this front yet. As I say, we don't even know what Treyarch's game is going to be in 2 years' time, let alone what Sledgehammer's game is going to be and whether it's actually going to be Advanced Warfare 2. But if it is, then FormaL says yes, the return is indeed going to happen. This time Temp real quick as well, because he was kind of responding to a fair few people trying to roast his Vegas Legion team, and I think understandably there were some roasts coming through. I thought this is interesting from Temp, right, because talking of Advanced Warfare, Temp and TJ Halley, both players that played back in Advanced Warfare when they were like 15, 14 years old pretty much, and they weren't allowed to compete at the World Championship that year, and then after that they had to take a couple of years off until they turned 18. But it's crazy really how young the Vegas team actually is. Like, Temp and TJ feel like they've been around forever, both of whom are still 23, 21, like Prolute's only 21 I believe, and then Clay of course is 30, but I mean, yeah, they've still got a lot of young talent on their team that has a massive future ahead of them, so these guys can still be around the league for a very long period of time. Just crazy that Temp and TJ are still so young relatively to how long they've been in the competitive COD scene. And just one funny thing to close out the video with, I think I mentioned this at the end of the video a few days ago now, when Cardi B got like effectively knocked out. They were going to do some sort of activation with Cardi B for the new cards, and there was some sort of like lawsuit thing going on, so she got rejected from it. And then the latest COD trailer, Nicki Minaj was in there, so like, I don't know, I guess second choice or whatever, but it's kind of funny that they did the whole switcheroo here so blatantly. And just to say this real quick from Breaking Point, last night we put out a great video, the best hardpoint performances in COD history over the last several years, including this classic 62 bomb here from Legal back in Black Ops 3. But very much enjoyed your thoughts in the comment section below. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did enjoy it, hit the like button, tell us your YouTube gods, it's a good video, and I was like you should see it as well, and help grow the competitive Call of Duty community. Thank you as always, take care, and I'll see you next time.